let's wind the clocks back a year. These cops and lawyers wouldn't dare cross any of it. I mean, what happened? Your balls just fall off? Welcome in to the Bro 4 Squad podcast, where we're just a bunch of bros drinking beer and talking movies. This is episode 147, and I'm your host, the mayor, Jeff Hornacek. Thank you guys so much for joining us for the movie discussion tonight. Before we get started, let's go around and meet the fellow bros. And first, we go to our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli. Now, Ronnie, it is officially March Madness, and I hate the NCAA. So I'll just ask you point blank, is there anything that we can sue them for?
Everything. I know it's everyone, but I'm going to go with that reference being everything. I would love to sue the NCAA. Let's sue them for everything, honestly. Like, throw it to the wall and see what sticks.
Can the judge be like, so what are the charges? And can we just go, oh, so much.
All of it. Yep.
Be like, no, I need something more
Let's
tangible.
start with what we're not going to charge them with.
Yeah, exactly.
That's
a much shorter list. Absolutely.
I would love to see how a judge would handle that. It's like, I don't think
the judge would be like, I hate the NCAA too.
They fucking suck. They got rid of my favorite video game for like a decade almost.
Yeah, I think they're going to win us back by bringing it. Come on.
Yeah, I mean, it's totally going to work. And next we go in the lab to the mad scientist, Brian Banner. Now, Banner, speaking of March Madness, is it true that you once made a bracket of the 64 best beers and drank them all in one night while forgetting to actually crown a winner?
Yes and no. Yes, there was a 64 beer tournament, but it was just 64 Miller Lights. Miller Lite lost.
What was what was the final four though?
Yeah, who was in the final four? Was it like chalk or was it some upsets?
Yeah, it was. We had Coors Light in there, Busch Original, which is weird. We had Michelob Ultra.
It sounds like the NIT.
Oh, maybe it was the NIT that I did.
He has his own NIT for beer and NCAA tournament for beer.
What was the worst beer we ever had? Lost Lake? Was that the one?
God, do you remember Pig's Eye?
It was at Wildcat Ice.
Oh God, Wildcat Ice. It looked like a bad energy drink can.
It was like $5 for 24 packs.
And we drank it warm, and like it literally smelled like cat piss.
I think awesome. when we brought up to the register, the guy, when he scanned it, like handed us $7. He's like, "Thanks for clearing some shelf space at the 7-Eleven."
Are you sure?
It's been sitting there for 20 years.
And we were like, $7 is all we get. And he's like, "Dude, that's all I can afford. Get the 36-pack. I'll give you 10." All right. Well, if you have not listened to our show before here on the Bro 4 Squad podcast, we start every episode off with the most important thing in any bro's life, and that is chest day. And as you could tell by the title of this episode, this is our Movie Madness tournament for 2021. The theme this year is the worst sequels ever made. Now, if you go back to episode 146, Ronnie Cycli and I did the selection show where we randomly drew 16 of the worst movie sequels of all time based on some internet research we had compiled and matched them up in a 16-movie bracket with 8 different matchups. And the link to that bracket is actually at the beginning of this description if you want to go check it out online. And what we're doing today is we are going to live score 4 of those matchups to see which movie is shittier and gets to advance to the second round or the Elite 8 of the tournament. But also, you people, our friends on Twitter and the internet, scored 4 of these via Twitter poll online and have selected on your own which of the 4 movies is shittier. So, Banner, I think the best way to do this would probably be to click on the link for the bracket and go through first the 4 matchups that our fans scored themselves and decide which movie is advancing, which in this case is the worst movie. So kind of a counterintuitive approach to March Madness.
So, yeah, first matchup in the Sweet 16, the number 1 seed, Zoolander 2. And it's not really the 1 seed. That's just where they landed. We did it randomly.
There are no seeds, yeah.
They happen to be in that 1 seed spot. Zoolander 2 versus Thor: The Dark World. Folks at home, you guys got it right. Zoolander 2 was the worst movie by a score of 74% to 26%. Zoolander 2 moving on to the Elite 8.
Cycli and I talked about this in the selection show. Thor 2 isn't great, But when compared to all these other movies, it's just too competently made, I think, to really have a chance to advance. It doesn't have
this honestly of the list is probably the second best movie in this bracket, and I think those two stand out from everything else pretty far.
Well, it's one of those things that, you know, it stands out as it is as like maybe the worst Marvel movie because of how good the Marvel movies are. And so you judge it on that spectrum, and it makes it on this list. But it's very quickly voted out because we all know it's not the worst movie. It's like, everyone makes fun of Godfather 3, but Godfather 3 sucks because it's compared to Godfather 1 and 2. But Godfather like 3 isn't a bad movie. It's not. It's just
even bad pizza is still pizza.
Yeah, absolutely. So yeah, I think the audience made the right call here. I think anyone who voted for Thor are probably just purists in the Marvel world and are just like upset about that one.
And probably were too wise to ever go see Zoolander 2, which I've mentioned this on the selection show. There's only one movie that I've ever walked out of in theaters, and Cycling and I actually have the same movie, which I don't even know if I don't think we saw it together, which is crazy.
It just seems weird if we both walked out, but not together.
But I think that's what is more of a testament to how shitty it was. But it's not in this bracket. We'll discuss that movie later. But Zoolander 2, I was very close to walking out of as well as a second movie.
And there's something, again, like to say there's something passionate, I think, why it won by such a big amount. I think we mentioned this on the selection show.
It fucking sucks.
Well, it sucks, but it also is an insult to a movie that we all love. Like that's how I feel about a lot of these. We'll get into that throughout this conversation. But it's not just a bad movie. It just shits on the original comedy. And I think people take that personally.
And I do, Cycling mentioning Godfather 3 did remind me. We should have mentioned this off the top, but this bracket, if you're looking at it at home, you'll make this realization, but it is comprised solely of direct sequels. So like the second follow-up to an original movie, not part 3s or 4s or prequels or soft reboots. Yeah, right. Because that was just too slippery a slope to get in. So you're probably thinking at home, like, yeah, Scary Movie 5 is way worse than any movie on here. And yes, definitively it is. But
you're not wrong.
You're not. These are just direct sequels.
I love that you mentioned Scary Movie 5, like it stands out in how bad it is compared to the other Scary Movie sequels. So like, no, 2 and 4 and 3, they're great. But 5 is where I draw the line.
Yeah, why the fuck are you giving 3 and 4 a pass? I actually do like Scary Movie 2. That's why it's not on this list. It's pretty funny.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah, the first 2 Scary Movies are great. They go downhill drastically after that. All right, guys.
Cliff, yeah.
So going up against Zoolander 2 is either Independence Day Resurgence or Deuce Bigalow European Gigolo. I don't know how to feel about this. Of a score of 56-43, Independence Day Resurgence is moving on. So that means Deuce Bigalow European Gigolo is a better movie than Independence Day Resurgence.
I gotta say, I'll go first. I just gotta think that here, it has nothing to do with Deuce Bigalow. If you're seeing Deuce Bigalow, you're expecting a bad movie, right? You have that expectation. Don't tell me you're going to see Deuce Bigalow. You're a little more insulted by Independence Day 2. So I think that's probably why. I think on paper, yeah, it's not as bad of a movie, but you have to have your expectations set. So that's what I'll say.
I think it's a very fair metric in this tournament to grade the sequel on the gap between its predecessor, right? So like if the original is held, and I'm not going to sit here and act like Independence Day by Roland Emmerich is some masterpiece in filmmaking, but it's a lot of fucking fun. And the big issue with a lot of these Cycling I talked about, if it takes you so long to wait to make a sequel, why do you make it? And this one, they didn't even get the biggest star in Will Smith to come back for the sequel.
That's a big problem.
In and of itself should have been reason to not make it. And then you watch it, and it's absolute dog shit. I was on a plane watching this, and I almost walked off the plane to avoid finishing it. Now, Deuce Bigalow European Gigolo, I've seen the whole thing, but not in one sitting, and I will never see it in one sitting. So I would have voted for European Gigolo, but I think it makes complete sense for fans to say Independence Day Resurgence should not have been made and sucks way worse than the first one. So to Cycling's point, you really did not expect anything from European Gigolo, which is why Independence Day Resurgence sucks worse.
And this is a close matchup, so I'm not surprised when either. I mean, 56-43 or 56.5-43.5. That's a pretty close matchup, especially in this early in the tournament. I'd say.
Yeah, and I mean, Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo, probably did not expect to go home so early, but I think they just got. It's all about draws, right, in the tournament, and they got
Cinderella
a good draw.
story. It's beautiful.
100%.
And I got to think too. I would love to see the box office combo. More people have just seen Independence Day 2.
Very true.
100%.
You know, and I think I attribute that to this. I don't blame the fans for voting the way they did on this one either.
Also, I think Rob Schneider has a lot of burner Twitter accounts, and he was probably on here juicing the numbers.
Had to have been. Had to have been.
Wouldn't be the first time. Definitely won't be the last.
Definitely won't be the last. All right, guys. Next matchup that was scored at home by the fans. Mortal Kombat Annihilation versus Evan Almighty. And Mortal Kombat Annihilation just annihilated Evan Almighty 71-29. This is not to say Evan Almighty is a good movie, because I think, again, this is just a bad draw. I think Evan Almighty could have gone very deep if it didn't get Mortal Kombat Annihilation first round.
Evan Almighty, I love Bruce Almighty. This is one that I think you could even argue is maybe a spin-off, although not a direct sequel, even though Morgan Freeman does return as God. But when I told you guys this, I think in the text thread, when I watched Evan Almighty, this was early on in Steve Carell's career. I think he was still doing The Office when this came out, but they were towards the latter half of his tenure on there. And I remember thinking, I don't think this guy's going to have a career outside of this show. It was so bad and so cringeworthy. But Mortal Kombat Annihilation, they recast basically half of the pivotal characters from the first Mortal Kombat, who are no names anyway. Like, why couldn't you get them to come back? And the first 15 minutes of it, there is this narrative that like describes what happened between the end of the first one and the beginning of the second one. And it is some of the worst filmmaking I've ever seen in my life. I highly encourage you to watch it on YouTube. It is laughably bad.
I think the gap here in the percentage of 71-29, it makes sense to me. I actually did not. I think that we talked about this on the drawing episode. I didn't hate Evan Almighty when I saw it. It didn't stand up to Bruce Almighty. But I also didn't feel like it was as shitty of a sequel as the Dumb and Number 2s, as the Zoolander 2s. I didn't feel like it completely shit on the original. And so it was absurd, absolutely. But it didn't insult me as much. So I find the fact that this won by 40% pretty truthful.
All right, next matchup.
Sorry, Brian, before we move on, we have to read this tweet that we got.
Yes, I forgot about this tweet. This is incredible.
So this comes to us. This was on the tweet we had for the matchup of Mortal Kombat Annihilation versus Evan Almighty. This comes to us from our friend on Twitter, Saber, at @techno_Saber, techno spelled Tekno. And his thought on the matchup, he says, movies like Evan Almighty are the reason I'm in a never-ending war with alcoholism.
It's the whole reason we have the podcast.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yes. And I remember
there,
there are multiple scenes in the movie, like the one where all the animals are like landing on his desk in his car, and I could easily see him being like, I need a stronger drink. We're not going to make, like, if his kids are enjoying the movie, he's like, I'm not going to make it through this fucking thing.
All right, guys, next matchup. This is a good one. Speed 2 versus Son of Mask. Son of Mask took it away 77% to 23%. Guys, I like Speed 2. I think Speed 2 is a fine movie. It's a lot of fun. So I'm actually a little insulted it even made the tournament.
The title, Cycling and I talked about this on the selection show, Speed 2 Cruise Control, sounds incredibly made up.
And?
I'm just saying. Cycling, I don't know if you have any thoughts about, because we talked about it a little bit on the selection show, about how moving the concept of speed onto a boat is, again, in the writer's room, they must have just said, guys, no bad ideas.
I think, I'm sorry, Brian, I love you, but I think Speed 2 is terrible. But I think Speed 2 got the benefit of a good matchup here. They could have been drawn against any other movie and probably made it through.
No, there's no way. There's no way that you would have picked Deuce Bigelow, European Gigolo, over Speed 2 Cruise Control. There's no way.
I don't know. I think when you send it out to the wide world of our listeners, it's very possible. I just think Son of the Mask is a definitely heavy one seed here. And I think that's gonna be. I think Speed 2 got lucky. I'm just gonna say that.
We got a couple tweets on this matchup as well. One that I want to read comes to us from Sean Young at Sean Young 19, who says, and this is a good point. Can I say Son of Mask, but Jamie Kennedy is great at what he was told to do. And Cycly mentioned this on the podcast. Jamie Kennedy gets shit on a lot just because I think he's kind of the victim of not picking the best projects. And taking this role where I think they basically just asked him to do a Jim Carrey impression the whole movie, which is not his forte. Like, yeah, I don't know what he was supposed to do with this thing.
Was he going to turn down a paycheck? You know he got paid for that.
Oh, yeah. 100%.
You know, like, I'm sure the whole movie he was like, this is going to be a disaster. But, you know, yeah, you got to credit to him. I don't think he was ever bad in anything. He's just always casting pretty shitty things.
Yeah, I don't think he's the problem with that movie.
No, definitely not. No one walked out of there, but for Jamie Kennedy, that was a classic.
Yeah, that thing had everything going for it till they cast Jamie Kennedy. Not true.
All right, guys, that was the fan matchups. So we want to roll into our first matchup that we're going to do. Jeff, do you want to explain why we didn't drop this one on Twitter?
Yeah, so I guess we'll start at the bottom of the bracket or towards the bottom of the bracket. We'll just do it in random order, whatever.
Yeah, random order.
So there are 4 matchups that we will be scoring here live on pod. And quite simply, in the first round, out of the 3 of us, we'll each just say which one we think is shittier. And whichever one gets at least 2 out of 3 will advance in the bracket. And if you're looking at the bracket online, again, these matchups are interwoven with the ones you guys have voted on Twitter. But we still need your help because each round you guys will be picking definitely a heavy amount of these matchups. And the winner, which is actually the loser in this case. So let's start towards the bottom of the bracket. The 2 sequels here competing against each other to see which is the worst is I Still Know What You Did Last Summer, which of course is the sequel to I Know What You Did Last Summer, and the Transformers direct follow-up sequel, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen. Now, before I throw it to you guys, I did want to read the plot synopses for each of these, but like Banner said, solely the reason that we picked these 2 movies as one of the matchups we wanted to vote on pod was I tried to put them into a poll on Twitter, and Twitter said that each of their titles were too many characters, and there was really just no way I could have abbreviated these without sounding like I'm having a stroke online. So that is the methodology here on the Bro4 Squad podcast of how we pick our matchups, what we want to talk about.
Very scientific. We use lots of algorithms, you know. I
just want to be honest. So, Brian, real quick, let me read the plot synopses for those people at home that maybe haven't seen these in a long time. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. According to IMDb, the plot synopsis says, the murderous fisherman with a hook is back to once again stalk the 2 surviving teens, Julie and Ray, who had left him for dead, as well as cause even more murder and mayhem, this time at a posh island resort. I didn't know you could cause murder. I thought you committed it. But
no, you can cause it, right?
Sure.
Yeah, you influence it.
And its opponent, Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, the plot synopsis is, Sam Witwicky, one of the great movie names of all time,
of course,
leaves the Autobots behind for a normal life, but when his mind is filled with cryptic symbols, the Decepticons target him, and he's dragged back into the Transformers war. Now, Banner, since I cut you off, which of these do you think is the worst movie, and give us your justification as to why?
I think I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is worse. I think Transformers Revenge of the Fallen is a competent movie. Lots of fun. It's got lots of action. We're blowing shit up. Michael Bay just comes in our face. And at the end of the day, I Still Know What You Did Last Summer is just a shitty made thriller.
So I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Get your vote for worst movie. Cycly, do you agree or disagree?
I disagree. Respectfully, of course.
No, fuck you.
No, actually, no, fuck you too, man. Like, there's no respect here. Transformers 2 followed up a fantastic original Transformers. And then Michael Bay decided, as to your point, Banner, Michael Bay did Michael Bay to the utmost ability here and completely took away any story or fun part of the movie outside of just explosions for 2 hours. And we did get our robot testicles, which I will never forgive for going through. I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. Again, if you heard me on the podcast, especially me and Hornacek, like big big, horror fans. I'm going to stand by it. I'm not going to sit here and tell you it's a great one, but it wasn't that bad. I mean, especially considering that I still know what you did last summer. I know what you did last summer. That's how they all are. So I take them for what it is. It's a fun horror movie. It's just supposed to be slapstick, whereas Transformers was supposed to be good, I felt like.
Yeah, I agree with Cycly here wholeheartedly. Okay. And I'm saying this as a fan of the Transformers series. This is, I think, the third worst Transformers movie. It's behind the original. It's behind Bumblebee. I think The Last Knight might even be better than this. Age of Extinction.
Which is the one with the dinosaurs. That one was good, too.
Age of Extinction, yeah.
Yeah, I like that one, too.
With Wahlberg. And to Cycly's point, the third act of Transformers Revenge of the Fallen totally falls apart. This is when Shia LaBeouf broke his hand by punching that wall drunk at a nightclub in Abu Dhabi where they were filming, and they had to write it into the script. Megan Fox and Michael Bay were like at each other's throats. Michael Bay was being like verbally abusive. It all pours through on screen in a horrendous end of the film. And go back and rewatch I Still Know What You Did Last Summer. It's actually kind of a creative idea for a horror sequel.
Yeah, I had fun. I rewatched it a couple years ago.
And it's almost creepier because they're on this isolated island and they don't really realize I won't spoil the plot. It's kind of written in the synopsis, but sort of the entrapment element is kind of a unique twist on the slasher genre.
Yeah, I mean, it's basically just Jurassic Park, but instead of dinosaurs, it's a guy with a hook. But whatever.
That's literally the only difference between the two movies. Yeah. Shot for shot remake, but anytime the T-Rex is on the screen, it's just a fisherman with a hook.
And as the Jurassic Park sequel ends, there's even an 8-year-old girl who does gymnastics and kicks a raptor.
God. And Lost World should have made this fucking list. Actually, no, it's a really good first 2 acts.
Yeah.
And I love that raptor scene in the grass.
God, it's a top 10 scene ever.
I'll agree with that. Jurassic World or Lost World just falls apart in the last couple third.
Yeah. All right. Well, Transformers: Revenge of the Fallen, by a count of 2-1, loses.
Would not have guessed that.
Or I guess wins, technically, and it will advance to the second round. Now, do we just want to do the other matchup to see who its opponent will be?
I want to save that one for last.
Okay. We will save that one for last. Let's go up towards the top of the bracket. This matchup will be facing Mortal Kombat Annihilation, who beat or lost to Evan Almighty. We'll just say beat for the purpose of the tournament going forward.
I have a great name for this. It's completely original. The Biggest Loser.
Oh,
I don't know how we haven't thought about that.
No show has ever done that. That's actually genius. All right, this matchup here is a battle of comedy sequels. And it is Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues, taking on Caddyshack 2. Now, remember, your criteria that you want to evaluate here, Bro4 Squad members, is totally up to you. But the plot synopses for these respective films are, we will begin with Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues. According to IMDb, it says, with the 1970s behind them, San Diego's top-rated newsman, Ron Burgundy, returns to take New York City's first 24-hour news channel by storm. And its competition here is Caddyshack 2. Plot synopsis is, when a crass new money tycoon's membership application is turned down at a snooty country club, he retaliates by buying the club and turning it into a tacky amusement park. Cycly will toss it to you first. A lot of comedy movies in this list. Both of these obviously failed to live up to expectations following massive successes for their first entries. Which to you sucks more?
It's probably a little unfair here because it's been a long time since I've seen Caddyshack 2. But I did not walk out of Anchorman 2 because I did not see it in theaters. But I did stop it after 20 minutes. I believe it was right around the time that he went blind. And I could not stomach another second. And again, I love bad movies. I love to just be entertained. It doesn't have to be great. I couldn't do it. So just on that effect alone, I'm going Anchorman 2 here as the worst movie in the scenario.
All right, Cycly votes for Anchorman 2. Almost walked out of his own living room watching it. Vayner, how about you?
So neither story here needed to be made. Neither story needed to be told, right? So you can't really, if you go off of our Bro4 Squad criteria, you can't really compare story and plot. Best scene just goes out the window in this as well. Impacts, unfortunately, I wasn't alive when Caddyshack 2 came out, so can't really compare that. Rewatchability, if you're in this tournament, you're not getting rewatched. Just facts. So that leaves us to acting and cast. Anchorman 2 had everybody coming back. Everyone came back.
And some great cameos as well.
Great cameos. And this quite possibly may be the worst performance by every single one of those returning actors from Anchorman to Anchorman 2. Caddyshack at least has the excuse of saying, hey, some of our big sluggers didn't come back for the second one. So that's why it didn't work. Anchorman 2, the acting was horrible, especially for that cast where you know they're capable of so much better. So I'm going Anchorman 2 as the worst movie, beating Caddyshack 2.
All right, I do have to say, Steve Carell obviously was a much bigger star when they made the second one. And Brick is not a character that you can give a heavier load to bear in the film, like just the way his character's set up. It doesn't work that way. And they tried to do it, his subplot with Kristen Wiig, and it was horrendous, absolutely cringeworthy. And I'm sure Steve Carell looks back at it and is just absolutely embarrassed, regardless of the paycheck he took. So I like your point there, but Banner, I'm actually going to use the acting and cast category. And even though it won't decide the matchup, it might cover the spread in Vegas. And I'm going to say Caddyshack 2 is the worst movie here because the film is so horrendous, obviously as on a whole. But on top of that, you don't bring back two of your top three stars in Rodney Dangerfield and Bill Murray. And Chevy Chase gives a Jennifer Lawrence level from Dark Phoenix mailed-in performance here.
Ugh.
So it's really like a shell of the first movie in and of itself. It's really Caddyshack 2 in name only. Whereas at least Anchorman 2 was able to get the talent to return. They had enough of a concept, same director, and Adam McKay and writer came back. Caddyshack 2 really just slapped Chevy Chase in a robe again and said, hold a golf club and we'll try and do something. Maybe Dan Aykroyd can get a laugh or two out of it. But it is an absolute patchwork piece of shit that they slapped Caddyshack, the name of Caddyshack on, and thought maybe people would buy it in a bargain DVD bin or VHS bin, I guess, at the time. So I vote Caddyshack 2, although it does not affect the matchup overall. So that means Anchorman 2, The Legend Continues, moves on and will face off in a matchup I think we all saw coming against Mortal Kombat Annihilation. I mean, we've compared these two movies for years, right, guys?
This is the matchup we've all been waiting for.
I'm excited about this one. I'm not going to be able to sleep tonight.
Yeah, you have some issues then.
Well, for other reasons. That's insomnia. But also because I'll be thinking about this.
Oh, yeah. Weird time to interject with that, but okay, makes sense. All right, since Banner wanted to save the bottom matchup in the bracket for last, we will get to another one of, I guess you could say these are like pseudo-comedy sequels, but they definitely try to be funny. Whether it succeeds or not, we'll find out here in a second. And that is Dumb and Dumber 2. But Ronnie, the joke is, you're going to love this, 2 is not the number. It's spelled like the conjunction T.
Wait, what? No.
Yeah.
Come on.
Yeah.
Well, shit, I got to change my vote now.
There's 3 ways to write, too. You think 1 and 3, they get it right, you know?
Yeah, and it's funny because one of them is actually like the number like a sequel would be.
Oh, my God. These guys.
So, Dumb and Dumber 2 going up against the Santa Claus 2, which apparently didn't get the memo because they just put the actual number 2 next to it. So Dumb and Dumber 2 versus Santa Claus 2. And again, Dumb and Dumber 2 being a direct sequel to the original, we did not do When Harry Met Lloyd, which came out before this movie, but is a prequel film. So the plot synopses for the respective movies. For Dumb and Dumber 2, according to IMDb, 20 years since their first adventure, Lloyd and Harry go on a road trip to find Harry's newly discovered daughter who was given up for adoption. And the Santa Claus 2 says Scott Calvin has been a humble Santa Claus for nearly 10 years, but it might come to an end if he doesn't find a Mrs. Claus. So, Brian, we'll throw it into the lab to you first. Which of these two movies, Dumb and Dumber 2 or the Santa Claus 2, sucks worse?
So, I have gone on record, as I think all of us have, all of the Santa Claus sequels are just awful. And it angers me every time I see them come on my television around Christmas time. With that being said, the story of Santa Claus 2, of him needing to find a wife and Charlie landing on the naughty list, is a natural progression of the story from the first one. Dumb and Dumber 2 is forced. 20 years later, what can we do? Oh, hey, this guy, he had a kid and it got put up for adoption, and all of a sudden he finds out about it. So they're forcing this idea, whereas Santa Claus 2, while it is a extremely poorly made and bad movie, it at least is a natural progression of the story and the character arcs of the characters from the first one. Whereas in Dumb and Dumber 2, they're like, hey, let's just throw these guys together and see if we can get some money.
Fair point. So you are voting for Dumb and Dumber 2.
To move on in the tournament, yes.
Right, because it sucks worse. All right.
Correct.
Cycly, how do you feel? Obviously, you are one of the biggest fans I know of the original Dumb and Dumber. Did that hurt the sequel here because as we're talking, the gap between them? Or did you really have no expectation going into the second one? And thus
it's definitely one of my top 3 probably comedies of all time. And I was so excited originally when this was announced because they got both of them back. And it was one of those concepts, like we were talking about Independence Day 2. If you're going to make it, you bring everybody back, and you clearly have some idea. And to be honest with you, I didn't hate Dumb and Dumber 2. I tried doing everything I could to like have some level set expectations, knowing it's never going to be the first one. But even with that, I watched that movie and thought it was sad. And mainly because you're looking at the actors and you're just like, they're clearly just aged. They're just doing the same thing. And it's just not sticking. And it's just like, I don't know, there was a little bit of like, I don't know, like pity when watching that movie. Because
Great
honestly,
point.
I don't think I looked at it as like a bad movie. I couldn't get over my sadness about it. And maybe it's like a deeper thing I feel about life and expectations and when we're going to be down 20 years down the road. But I couldn't get over that. And again, I haven't watched Santa Claus 2 since the 90s, I think. Didn't
Probably
stand
a
the
good
test.
thing.
Yeah, it didn't stand the test of time. I remember when I don't like something as a kid, that tells you something. Because I loved every movie as a kid.
Oh, bro,
every movie was...
Yeah, I loved everything.
Everything was my favorite movie whenever I watched it. So the fact that I didn't like Santa Claus 2 tells you a lot about it. I don't anticipate... I didn't want to say this. I am going to vote for Dumb and Dumber 2. I don't anticipate it's going to go much farther in the bracket. I don't think it is the worst movie of all time. I just genuinely felt that it was sadder than funny for other reasons than the movie itself.
Yes.
I think that's a great point.
Very good point. And Banner and I have talked about this, I think, when we did the Christmas Chronicles 2 movie commentary, which, check that out. The only way to get through that movie, guys, is drunk and with us. But with a lot of these sequels, specifically involving Santa Claus, the more time you spend at the North Pole getting into that lore, the less fun they become, because they're just not as relatable around the holidays. Not that the first Santa Claus, you're like, oh, this has happened to me before. But something about like your Christmas Eve night being interrupted because Santa falls off your roof is a little more accessible, I guess you could say, than the entire movie being spent at the North Pole following the escape clause in a contract. I'm surprised Cycly, actually, as a lawyer, you didn't cum your pants over that aspect of the film.
Well, I wasn't a lawyer when I saw it, so.
Oh, got it. When you were
maybe
6,
it inspired me subconsciously.
True. It was like Inception. It just sat in your mind for years and years. But I'm also going to vote for Dumb and Dumber 2. Cycly took the words right out of my mouth. I take no joy in saying I hated this movie. It was actually kind of painful to watch. It was like cringe, I don't even think describes the agony that I felt, specifically for Jeff Daniels, I think. Watching that movie, and I'm just like, why did you do this, man? Like, you're on the newsroom, dude. Like, you're on a culturally relevant show making, like, art that people actually respect and resonates with them. And now you're doing this weird lisp with Harry, and it's like, I don't know. It was really bizarre, and it just made me uncomfortable. And I think specifically now, having seen what Peter Farrelly did with Green Book afterwards, which Ronnie mentioned on the selection show, getting these guys back together, and this is the product we get. I'm not necessarily shitting on like the movie, but like, why after 20 years is this what got everybody out of bed to reunite to make this film? I just
completely agree. And that's the thing, like Jeff Daniels, but Jim Carrey didn't need this either.
Right.
And that's what I think, that's why it kind of came in with some decent expectations because you're two actors who don't need it. You bring the same writer back. Everything's coming back. You're like, you just feel like there's a reason for it. And then then you have double the fall there.
Now I will say this: if if third entries were in this bracket and the Santa Claus 3,
Santa Claus 2 or Santa Claus 3, that's
Santa Claus 2 looks like
Heavy
Lawrence
fate.
of Arabia compared to Santa Claus 3 with Martin Short. I mean, that is one of the biggest pieces of shit I've ever seen in my life. You think Tom and Jerry was bad, Ronnie? Try to watch the Santa Claus 3. Is it Santa
Maybe
Claus
I'll do
2
both in one night.
Banner, it's Santa Claus 3, right, where they make the robot Santa Claus to take over the North Pole when he's gone?
yeah, I think so, right?
Oh.
With Jack Frost comes in.
Yeah, Martin Short and that
Martin
horrible
Short.
like, Ivan Ooze ripoff costume.
Yeah.
It sounds awesome to me.
Yeah, you're just trolling us.
Yeah.
No, never.
You're
All right,
disgusting.
Dumb and Dumber 2 will advance to take on Son of the Mask in the Elite Eight. And that leaves Banner's favorite matchup for the last one of the first round. It will be The Amazing Spider-Man 2, the Andrew Garfield follow-up, directed by Mark Webb again, versus The Hangover Part 2. Now, according to IMDb, the respective plot synopses, we will start with The Amazing Spider-Man 2. When New York is put under siege by Oscorp, it is up to Spider-Man to save the city he swore to protect, as well as his loved ones. And The Hangover Part 2, the plot synopsis is, 2 years after the bachelor party in Las Vegas, Phil, Stu, Alan, and Doug jet to Thailand for Stu's wedding. Stu's plans for a subdued pre-wedding brunch, however, go seriously awry. Cycly, we'll throw it to you first. Probably one of the bigger disparities in terms of the type of movie these each are we have in the first round. Which one do you think was worse, The Amazing Spider-Man 2 or The Hangover Part 2?
So this was a tough one. I think this is going to be interesting to see how this plays out because I think The Hangover itself, the acting was fine. They brought everyone back. We've brought that a bunch up on this topic, but everyone's acting was fine. Everything they did in the film was fine. It was the concept of what they decided to do for the overall plot. And there was a small sense of realism. Yeah, it was absurd. I know. But there was a small sense of realism with the first Hangover. That went all out the window with this one while doing the exact same story. So I really, really hated Hangover 2. I actually didn't hate Hangover 3 because I appreciate that they did something a little different.
Yeah, I like Hangover 3.
Yeah, Hangover 3's good.
Yeah, I literally just remember at one point, I can't remember the exact scene because I tried to black it out, but I was just like, please stop. I think it was with the transvestites or all the type, like all that kind of stuff. And then like what they do to his character and all this kind of thing. I'm like, this is not even real. Like this wouldn't happen. So I got really angry about that. With the Amazing Spider-Man 2, I think, again, that kind of comes into town with like how we're comparing it to the other movies. I didn't feel like it was. I'm also not as big of a fan overall compared to those movies, so I didn't judge it as harshly. So I particularly, it didn't stand out to me. I thought those movies were being overdone at the time, but I didn't hate it, probably because I had that expectation. So I am going to vote for Hangover 2 here, just because it made me literally angry.
Now, before I turn it over to Banner, did you guys watch the clip I sent you from Hangover Part 2, which is still one of my favorite individual movie clips?
I'm not saying it doesn't have funny parts. It absolutely does. But, oof.
Yeah, the movie in and of itself, basically doing its impression of the first film, but failing in every possible aspect. Number one, the relatability factor, which, like bachelor parties in Las Vegas, are inherently more accessible to us here in the United States versus... I think they really just set the movie in Thailand because they thought referencing Bangkok repeatedly would be funny. Like a gag in and of itself, which is, even for my juvenile sense of humor, is a bit of an eye roll moment.
It got old real quick.
Yeah. And by real quick, I mean before the first joke was even made.
It's almost as good as the Dumb and Dumber 2 joke.
I still don't think you understand how many levels that one's working.
Yeah.
I'll come around. I'll figure it out.
Yeah, give me a call later tonight once it like really registers with you. All right, Banner, I think I know where you're going to go here, but Cycly has already voted for The Hangover Part 2. Do you think that movie was worse or The Amazing Spider-Man 2, and why?
100% Hangover Part 2 is worse. Amazing Spider-Man 2, I hold close to my heart. I actually like the movie. And really, aside from Jamie Foxx's performance, it's not a bad movie. He's just really...
Oh, Banner froze. I'll pick up.
Or he's just really passionate, and the suspense right now.
And he's holding still. He's holding that thought. So I'll interject here for Banner, and if he ever decides to rejoin the podcast.
No, I'm here.
Okay, you just unfroze after about 30 seconds of
No, I've been here the whole time. I just had a whole spiel in it.
You're still cutting out. The people at home are like, thank God he was going to talk about James Fox's Electro. I think you're unfrozen now, though, if you want to say your piece.
Amazing Spider-Man, aside from Jamie Foxx, is a good movie. It may get a little long at times, and it's a little drawn out. And like Cycly said, when it came out, we were kind of over Spider-Man, and we were kind of over that kind of movie coming out. The Hangover Part 2 is just a regurgitation of the first one, but it's like, it's like an Atari version of The Hangover, is what Hangover Part 2 is. It's fun. We still had fun, but it's not. That was a bad analogy. I don't know what I'm trying to say, other than Amazing Spider-Man 2 is way better than Hangover Part 2.
There you go. Atari's at home like, the fuck did we do to you, man?
Yeah. Atari would be the Hangover in this scenario, the original.
Yeah. You get what he's
saying. I appreciate that.
Yeah, I figured that out about halfway through my statement, and so I was like, well, I fucked up.
Is Atari paying you and you just like had to mention them in the show?
I'm not in a position to disclose that information. That's what I'm supposed to say, right, Cycly?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah.
Saved it. So The Hangover Part 2 already advances, but I'll weigh in as well, again, to cover the spread. The Amazing Spider-Man 2 is poorly acted on the whole. It's overly ambitious. It's convoluted. Its plot makes no sense. It has horrific CGI, specifically in the third act with the Electro fight scene. And its over ambition is really laughable in retrospect. Having said that, all of those things, minus the Jamie Foxx performance, have actually grown on me over time. And I've hated the movie less and less. There is still, as a comic book fan, I won't spoil the ending for you, but the Gwen Stacy and Peter Parker conclusion in the film is incredibly accurate and well done. What happens with their two characters?
Hands down, best scene of this franchise.
I don't like Dane DeHaan at all as Harry Osborn, even though I like Dane DeHaan, but he's really not in the movie that much, and Harry is kind of just shoehorned in for future installments. Now, The Hangover Part 2, I think after we saw that the third one was sort of a rebound as well, you just realize, yeah, this franchise was really trying to insult our intelligence and make the same movie again, but worse, and with the same jokes repeating. And for that instance, I have to cyclically referencing like all the transvestite stuff, which I actually totally forgot about, is even worse on a rewatch now, like in modern day context. It's a pretty fucking bad movie. So with a clean sweep, The Hangover Part 2 advances here.
And kind of like Dumb and Dumber 2, I don't anticipate that this movie making a deep run, but I think it deserved to get out of the first round.
Agreed. Very much agreed. All right, real quick, because these will be on our Twitter at Bro4Squad throughout the week, so please follow us and tweet your thoughts on which of the movies is worse. But we have Zoolander 2 going up against Independence Day Resurgence. Anchorman 2 against Mortal Kombat Annihilation. Son of the Mask will compete against Dumb and Dumber 2. And the last matchup of the second round will be Transformers Revenge of the Fallen versus The Hangover Part 2. Guys, before we move on to Protein Shake, any thoughts on how this first round played out? Cycly, we'll go to you first. Any surprises? Any movie you're shocked advanced? Or is this pretty much how you had your bracket looking?
It's pretty much how I had my bracket so far. Not to say there weren't some tight matchups, but I think so far between the fan votes and what we decided here, I think that's a pretty accurate reflection. I think it's pretty tough because you have different genres, and it's always hard gauging bad movies. It's easy to gauge good movies, but I think so far we're pretty accurate.
Yeah, I think I would be, if I was in a bracket pool, I would be at like 76% correct with my final four probably still intact, which is a rarity for me after the first two rounds or first two days. Ben, how about you?
Yeah, I would agree with that. I think that the only one that I would not have predicted was I Still Know What You Did Last Summer beating Transformers Revenge of the Fallen, or vice versa. I don't know how we're gauging this. I would not have expected Transformers Revenge of the Fallen to move forward. I'm not gonna lie, I'm a little surprised by that, but I respect it and I understand it. Like you, I think my final actually, I don't know, man. This is second round here, the Elite Eight. We've got some tough fucking decisions here. Zoolander 2, Independence Day 2. I think the hardest one might be Anchorman 2 and Mortal Kombat Annihilation even.
It's tough when there's such different genres, right? Because it's like, how do people determine a comedy that is so unfunny that you just like want to beat yourself with a mallet is pretty bad. But Mortal Kombat Annihilation isn't a movie. It's like a 14-year-old who just figured out graphic design, and has had 6 Red Bulls that day at 4 a.m. on his computer trying to edit something together. That's what it looks like.
Honestly, at that point, it's kind of impressive, actually. Like, dude, you should stick with it.
You're like, are you trying to make me not want to watch this? Because that sounds fucking interesting as hell. All right. So that does it for Chest Day. Again, follow us on Twitter at Bro4Squad. We're going to need your guys' help this week voting on the matchups, because the best part of these Movie Madness tournaments is your guys' opinions. And please tweet and comment on the matchups, and we will read them on our show. We would love to do that. We got a couple comments we didn't get around to reading first round, but we'll try to get to all of them in the second round.
I think now that we're going to get some good matchups and some good comments, because it gets real now.
Yeah. Evan Almighty, although it goes home, it probably had the best comment of the whole first round. All right. Second part of our show is our protein shake, where we go around and talk about what's in our cup, also known as what have we watched lately. Now, we can do a round robin, but Cycly, I'll toss it to you first. What's something you've seen since we last spoke last week?
So last Saturday, the wife and I finally got around to watching Judas and the Black Messiah. And I'll just have to say, it's fucking incredible. It deserves all the nominations it got in the Academy Awards. Absolutely. I didn't know much of this story at all going in. And I recommend that you don't. I recommend that you read about it after, but, go in a little bit without some knowledge, because it is horrifying. It's amazing. It's beautiful. It's kind of everything. Obviously, Daniel Kaluuya, I think I'm saying it right. He's phenomenal, and I love him. I've loved him since Black Mirror. He was in the original season of Black Mirror and the 15 Million Merits. Loved him in Get Out. This
has 2 of the main cast members from Get Out, right?
Yeah, actually. Well, and or another one from is in Black Mirror too. So a lot of some actors coming back together, but he's really fast becoming one of my favorite actors. I think he's phenomenal. His performance in this, if he doesn't win the Oscar, I will be shocked.
Lakeith Stanfield is what his name is. Yeah,
he's
great in Uncut Gems also.
Yeah, he's a great actor too, and he's also nominated. They're both nominated for supporting. I do have to feel like you give it to Daniel. They're both so good in it, but Daniel has more of the accent, the passion that he portrays. I really was one of those films that ended, and I was just sat there for a few minutes, trying to really just take in what I just saw. And also Jesse Plemons was in it, who's also in Black Mirror, U.S. Callister. He was
one
hilarious.
of my favorite Black Mirror episodes.
Yeah, it's one of mine too. He's hilarious in Game Night. He was, in Breaking Bad. He's kind of this actor who's in everything. He's never really the main character, but he's in a lot of stuff. If you go look at his filmography, or it's pretty crazy. But he does a great job, especially always being a bad guy in most of the things he's in.
Did you know he's married to Kirsten Dunst?
Yeah, dude, that's the weirdest thing to me. Because my favorite nickname for him is Meth Damon.
That's really good.
Yeah,
also,
between his performance and
This is just a Get Out sequel because Lil Ray Howery is in it as Wayne also.
Yeah, there's a lot of actors who came back together for this one.
Insane.
It's again, like the writing, the acting, the power of the story. I'm glad I caught it because it was only on HBO for one more day when I did.
Fuck.
And
Well, that means
absolutely, I'm sure we'll come back on, or you can
Just
pay
rent
a
it
little
from your
bit,
local library, Jeff.
Exactly. And watch it because I think it's going to win a ton of awards, and I really do believe it deserves every award it will get.
Good. We'll Cycly, feel free to go on the Broskers doc for 2021 and add it to any category you need or that you feel it earns it. I love how I'm complaining that I didn't get to watch it, even though literally for the past 2 months, every time I log into HBO Max, it's like, hey, you might want to watch this. And I'm like, fuck off. I will decide what I want to watch.
That's what happened to me. And I was like, oh, shit, it's tomorrow. So we got to watch this.
That's how the human brain works. Until I'm like, there's a gun to my head and I feel the pressure. For some reason, I'm not compelled to click it. All right, good. I'll have to find a way to watch that now. I didn't realize that it was half the cast to Get Out because I love all those actors. Banner, I'll go and then I'll toss it over to you. Okay. I watched... Actually, on HBO Max, you guys know I'm really into the DC animated movies because I think
they're so fucking good.
They're so good, just collectively as a whole, and they're just so digestible. They're all like an hour 10, hour 15
at most.
This is one that I had been on my radar for a while because the comic arc is so great, and that is Batman Hush, which is also on HBO Max. This is one of the more intense. This one and the Azrael, kind of the Nightfall comic arc, were my two favorites with Batman growing up. And Hush, I have to say, there's a few changes in the DC animated movie, and rarely do I watch an animated film and say about the ending, like, wow, did not see that coming. That's what Batman Hush was. Just a brief description of the plot. Essentially, Batman is starting to think that he wants to give up the cape and cowl, as we've seen before, and a reformed Selina Kyle and him begin a much more serious romantic relationship than they have in the past. But Batman starts to realize that people close to Bruce Wayne are beginning to be targeted and harmed, not Batman. And he realizes someone knows his identity and is out to exact revenge on him for something. And he goes through several of his rogues galleries. There's actually even a cameo from Superman and Lois Lane in the movie that's tactfully done. And all of Batman's key rogues basically say, like, we know who this person is, but we're so scared of them that we can't basically rat them out to you.
Oh, wow.
And I will say this, who Hush ends up being in the film is different from the comics, but I like what they did. And it is someone that we know. So it's not like it's some dude who just fucking shows up and you're like, really? Okay.
Is it Geiger?
I can't. Come on.
Okay. You said someone we know, so.
He's too fat to fit in the frame of the... They'd have to change the aspect ratio to get his fat ass in there. Batman Hush. Highly recommend. I think I gave it a 4 out of 5 on Letterboxd. As usual, DC Animated nails it again. All right, Banner, what's something you saw?
Went back, rewatched 10 Things I Hate About You.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
it's a great movie.
Is that on Netflix? Because
it's on Disney Plus.
What? I have to watch that.
It's
one of the best rom-coms by far.
Yeah, I was scrolling through, and I'm going through my Star Wars quest, and I needed a break, and that was literally the thing that came up first. It was like things you might like, and 10 Things I Hate About You came up, and you're right. I would like to watch that. Watched it. Great revisit. This is one of the all-time classic rom-coms, guys.
Was Joseph Gordon-Levitt in that before Third Rock from the Sun or concurrently?
I think if anything, it would be concurrently.
I think so too.
Well, was it because Third Rock was 90s?
I think this was like late 90s, early aughts, maybe.
But I'm just thinking of his age because he's a high schooler in Third Rock from the Sun.
It might be after, yeah.
He looks like he's in high school now, though.
I wish we had some service at our fingertips where we could look this up.
Let's see. I'm there,
I'm not
both concurrent. Third Rock from the Sun was 6 seasons from 1996 to 2002, it looks like, and 2001, and 10 Things I Hate About You was 1999.
Wow, look at us. There's
Thank
someone
you,
at home
internets.
like someone at home's like, I told you that, dumbasses. Like, well, you're in your car. We can't hear you.
Ever since I got the Bill Gates vaccination, like this information just appears in my head. It's pretty awesome.
Interesting.
Huh.
So Banner, it holds up, right?
Yeah, of course it holds up. Julia Stiles, this is like when she did stuff.
She sucks, but everyone else in that movie is so good.
Well, yeah, but I just felt like we need to address the fact that in every movie she's in, she plays the exact same person.
Yeah. If I'm her,
And she's not good at it. That's the thing. I don't understand.
Well, do you think you'd get offended when you only got called for roles where your character was described as heinous bitch? I'd be like, why am I always getting these phone calls from casting agents?
Can I tell you guys a funny story about Julia Stiles?
Please.
This is true. When I was first dating my girlfriend, my now wife, I met her roommates, and I was just sitting next to one of her roommates.
Your wife or Julia Stiles?
Both, actually. They live together. No, my wife's roommate.
She's down the hall from Brandon Routh, right?
That's right, yeah. And so she was on the cover of a magazine. I can't remember what magazine, but it was on the coffee table at my wife's place at the time. And I just made a comment for no reason. And I just said, oh, I've never found Julia Stiles attractive. Just, offhanded. And her roommate looks right at me. She goes, everyone tells me I look exactly like Julia Stiles. And I'm like...
Honestly, that's on her roommate. You didn't say you found her unattractive.
I immediately go, I don't think you look like Julia Stiles. But it was clearly like I had put my foot in my mouth in that moment. And she just like walked up and left. I was like, cool, that's about right. So thanks, Julia Stiles.
Yeah, see, even when she's not there, she ruins shit for people.
She is good in Save the Last Dance, though.
That's only something Brian Banner would say. I don't disagree with you, but you had the balls to actually say it.
Hey, you want to know a story about Save the Last Dance? That was my first real date that I went on, was to go see Save the Last Dance.
Oh, nice.
Girl's name was Erica.
Was the girl you were with like, what's up, Erica? I'm sure she's listening. Was she like, why don't you take me out dancing like that? And you're like, because I'm 14 and I just met you?
Yeah, I was in like 6th grade, and I don't even know that my mom knows that she dropped me off here to go on a date with you, so...
Seeing Save the Last Dance as a 6th grader sounds like the worst fucking experience of your life.
It wasn't great.
Did you guys walk over to the IHOP across from the movie theater?
I actually did.
Or the Wendy's?
It wasn't at my...
Or the Wendy's, yeah.
Yeah, the Wendy's. It wasn't that movie theater. This is when I still lived in Illinois.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Because next I was going to ask is, did you make her wait while you played Time Crisis in the lobby after
the lobby? God, those were the days.
I think Cycling and I missed like 10 movies because we were playing Time Crisis.
Like, dude, come on, the movie's starting. No,
I don't give a fuck. I'm on the 3rd level. All right, let's go round robin on the way back. Banner, what else have you seen? What else?
All right, so like I mentioned before, doing the Star Wars quest, I finished Rebels, went on, watched Rogue One, A New Hope, and I'm about halfway through Empire Strikes Back right now.
So, real quick to interrupt, this to me, when you were describing your Star Wars quest, it was like, this is like the meat and potatoes of it. This is the part where it's like, okay, that's why I'm doing this.
Yes, I'm not going to lie. Getting into that last season of Rebels, I was getting fatigued. I was getting beat down. It was becoming a chore. Honestly, 10 Things I Hate About You, that was like my all-star break. I watched that. I was good to go. Finished the last few episodes of Rebels. They finished it well. Again, it's not the best series. I think Clone Wars is much, much better. But it was solid. Rogue One. God, guys. This is a fucking blast.
If you go back to our Star Wars Movie Madness tournament, which I believe was 3 years ago now, it did some fucking damage.
It is really, really fucking good. And then, obviously, at least personally, I cannot watch Rogue One or A New Hope without watching the other. So watching them back-to-back straight through, how you can make a movie, what was that, 40 years later, and have it so seamlessly move together, really, really long-ass movie, is an incredible testament to both of them.
And I think Gareth Edwards too, as the director of Rogue One, like I love to shit on Rian Johnson on this pod, but Gareth Edwards just had an appreciation for he had just a reverence for Star Wars that I think Rian Johnson almost like mocked in the
I would
last.
agree. I would agree with that.
Also, our Rogue One commentary was so much fun. Sorry.
That's a top 5 Broforce Squad.
That's one of my favorites.
Was that the Star Wars Scramble?
Yes.
The golf, yeah.
Yes.
That's where in the intro you asked me what I was drinking, and I said gin.
Gin. Yeah, I laughed actually out loud whenever that part in the movie came up, and he said that because of our commentary.
Does he ever not talk like he smokes 8 packs a day?
No, because he does smoke 8 packs a day.
I do remember when he. Sorry to interrupt you, but I just thought of this. When he like video conferences Galen Erso, we're like, well, thank God they didn't call using fucking Skype because it would have made Galen update the software 3 times.
That's right. I forgot about that. Halfway through Empire Strikes Back, guys, Empire might be the best score top to bottom in the entire Star Wars franchise.
I think Empire was the first time, speaking of like the music as a kid, where I realized like, oh, this is like really adding something to the scene. It wasn't something I was like humming again in my head. I was like, I'm feeling something different. Like when you're on Hoth, it kind of makes you feel this like ominous, like, oh shit, something bad's gonna happen.
Where I really noticed it now is on Dagobah. There is very little dialogue actually when Luke is on Dagobah training with Yoda compared to the amount of screen time that Dagobah gets. The music tells you exactly what you need to be feeling, and you're feeling what you're seeing on screen through that music. And I know this is going to sound really weird to say, but I feel like the score is really underrated. I mean, it's fucking Star Wars, so it's not underrated, but as far as comparing it to the other Star Wars movies, it does the most for the movie.
Agreed.
That's all I got to say.
All right. I'll get one of mine out of the way real quick. I watched the what's it actually called? No, not Legends. Marvel Studios Assembled. Sorry, Disney Legends is like Marvel Legends is like the character build-ups to all their shows. I watched Marvel Studios Assembled, the making of WandaVision. It was a 1-hour like introspective on how they made the series, and the only thing that I'll really say about it on here, it's definitely worth a watch. I love making of documentaries. I know not everybody is a huge fan of them, but this was fun for me, obviously, as a Marvel fan. But Banner, you and I talked about this a little bit earlier on one of our reviews of the series, but the total commitment to the era of the live sitcoms that they did is really cool to see in the making of, like how they actually brought in a live studio audience for the 50s and 60s episodes and like performed it essentially like a play. And Paul Bettany and Elizabeth Olsen talking about like how crazy that was for them as actors. Like it's not anything they'd ever done before, right? Because it's essentially a medium that's evolved so much. You'll add a laugh track, right? You don't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And especially to do the Marvel universe is like, I gotta tip my cap to Kevin Feige. You know, I have mixed feelings about the ending of the show. I loved it as a whole, but the ending, you know, whatever. But Kevin Feige is a dude with the guts to do something unconventional when it would have been really, really easy to just stick to the script that he's made $1 billion off of with like 10 of their last 12 IPs, you know. And he didn't do that, and I appreciate that. And that's really evident in the making of, where the director Matt Shakman and sort of the cast talk about how when Feige pitched this idea to them, he said, this is going to be bonkers and way out there, but I think this is a good time for us after Endgame and the culmination of 22 movies to try and throw a curveball at people and see how they react, which was a cool thing to see.
Yeah, that's I saw it pop up on there, but I didn't get a chance to watch it yet, but I'm very intrigued by it. I like the making of shows like that, just because you get an insight to what their mindset was as they were creating that scene, or if what they were trying to do actually is what you received.
Yeah. And then one other thing I'll mention real quick before I turn it over to Cycly, because I think Cycly will love this movie, but I watched The Wolfman from 2010, starring Benicio del Toro, Anthony Hopkins, and Hugo Weaving. Cycly, have you heard of this movie, or do you remember trailers for it?
I don't know. I feel like you saying that cast makes me feel like I should have.
Emily Blunt is in it as well, actually. She's a pretty big part. It's so I was just in the mood I was like, I want to watch a horror movie right now. And this is actually directed by Joe Johnston, who did the first Captain America movie, and he did The Rocketeer. And it's like they take a swing at making the Wolfman like dark and gritty, and it was pretty fun, man. Basically, like the first 25 minutes of it plays almost like a straight up like period piece about like prejudice and like the class system. And then once the Wolfman shows up, it just fucking goes off the rails in some of the best ways possible. And I would recommend it, Cycly. I think if you're like on a Friday night, you know, you want to have a couple drinks, watch a good horror movie that takes itself seriously, but also like at times you're like, I mean, it's the Wolfman right now. He's slashing people's throats. And then has a little bit of a twist in it. Not a great one, but they tried. I think you would enjoy the Wolfman.
What is this? Okay, you had me at the cast. So what's it streaming on?
Let me get back to you. I'll look it up right now, but I rented it from my local library. Just say.
Of course, yes.
All right, Cycly, what's in your cup?
Well, it's funny because we keep referencing the local library, and what I watched the other day was a documentary called "The Last Blockbuster," and it's
on Netflix.
It is on Netflix, which is kind of funny because it's about the last Blockbuster, and you're watching it on Netflix, which is arguably why Blockbuster doesn't exist.
Wrote a squad buckle at it.
Yeah, you did. That was a few years ago, wasn't it?
It was a while ago, yeah.
Yeah. So first of all, it's probably about 10 or 15 minutes too long, but I thoroughly enjoyed it. It's the nostalgia factor is absolutely a blast. It took us back to a time when we were kids and going to the video store on a Friday night with your family, with your sisters, with your friends.
So fun.
And you would spend an hour there. You would argue about what different movies with your parents. You'd be like each sibling gets one movie. And so you had to be really particular. You had to agree because you're all going to watch the same movies together. And it was just, I don't know, it just had that like kind of feeling like I missed that. Yeah, we have Netflix and Hulu and HBO and everything like that, but there's a lot of, it's not as fun scrolling through these apps as it was to actually go into a movie store and just, I don't know. Oh, can you guys hear me? Sorry, yeah. I thought you guys were both frozen. Sorry. But yeah, going into a movie store and just enjoying time with your friends and everything like that. So it does have Kevin Smith in it, has a couple comedians, a couple actors in it who talk about that. They talk about Tarantino worked in a video store nice. When he was young, and just kind of like how it's the greatest job in the world because you get to recommend movies to everyone. You get to watch movies at home all the time. And there is one Blockbuster left currently. It's in Bend, Oregon. And they talk a lot to the owner of that one. And it's pretty cool because people travel from around the world just to go see it.
Oh, damn.
And
that's crazy.
Yeah, people from like Spain and like New Zealand and wherever we're doing like, yeah, we specifically came here to go to the last Blockbuster. And like I said, it is a little long because you know what they're doing with it. They do get into the fact of why Blockbuster doesn't exist anymore. They talk to old executives and board members, and it's not something.
Because I know they tried to do like originally I don't know if they had streaming, but definitely like a rent online ship. They talk about like, did they just get to that model too late?
No, they actually did talk about that and how they were actually on better pace. This is something I liked about it. The movie was not like, oh, Blockbuster was just not up with the times. Actually, at the time, Blockbuster was doing a really good job of adapting. And there's a whole like, oh, they could have bought Netflix, but they didn't. And look at them now. But it's actually the financial crisis in 2008 that is what brought Blockbuster down. The corporation had so many debts. And when the stock market crashed, that's actually what led to it. It wasn't this Netflix thing. Blockbuster did have a video platform. They did have the mail-in movies. And it was really the financial market that caused it, not that they were behind the times. And I thought that was interesting because that's not what we've always been told. Obviously, Netflix had a huge deal with it. But yeah, go watch it. It's on Netflix. It's like an hour 15, hour 20. And again, the nostalgia is the main reason for it. It's worth it just for that.
Is there
I'm in.
any feeling that's worse in the world than walking into a video store, you see the cover of the movie you want, and there's not a movie
Yeah.
behind it because it's already been rented?
They talk about that, like how this is so universal. And the second you saw that there was no movie, you went to the front counter and you go, has anyone returned it?
Yes.
Yeah, is it in the returns
Yeah.
box?
Has it? Where is it? Like, when is it supposed to be due by? And all these kind of things. That's my favorite thing. They talk about something that we all would do every time we were at Blockbuster, no matter what. And so it's, again, for people in our generation who grew up with video stores. I know people a little younger than us don't know what that's like. In the documentary, they actually take like some 15-year-olds there, and they're like, "What the hell is this?" But yeah, go watch it. A little long, but it's fun.
That's awesome. I didn't know that was out yet. I saw it like on my screensaver on my Fire Stick that it was coming soon, so I'll definitely have to check it out. And Cycly, just to circle back, The Wolfman is currently streaming on Peacock if you want to download that, and then maybe just delete the app after you watch it.
Yeah, I'm never downloading Peacock. I'm just always mad at them.
That's fair. Banner, the only thing I have left is what we both watched. So do you have anything else?
Yeah, I've got two things real quick. First one, watch Jurassic World again. This past weekend was Baby Banner's third birthday, which is crazy to think about. But for one of her birthday gifts, she got these little dinosaur eggs that you get to like chip away at, and then there's a dinosaur inside. So while we were chipping away at these eggs, we had to watch Jurassic World. And check out our movie commentary on that one also. But great movie, great performance by everybody. Just fantastic idea. This doesn't really fall into the sequel category that for our chest day or for our tournament, but this is how you do something 20 years later and make it work. I think Halloween did a good job too, but Jurassic World takes the idea of Jurassic Park and says, okay, that one still existed. It's still a thing, but we're not going to, we need to figure out how to make it better. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, so these are being dubbed legacy sequels. That's kind of what they're saying the new Scream movie is going to be. And I think Cycly and I are both hoping that Spiral from the Book of Saw sort of takes, obviously it's a much different script, but sort of takes the same approach of honor the original source material, play in that world, but have a new idea. Yes. Because we are starving and so hungry to go back to this world, to this universe, but we can't just keep like digging up the same exact soil trying to plant the same seed, right? It has to be something different, and we will welcome it with open arms. We have to have some idea for us.
Yep, I think that's why the new Halloween movie works so well, because again we were playing in that world, but even for the horror genre, it was still a fresher concept, a newer idea. Agreed. Last thing I've got, I have never seen this, The Burbs.
Oh, with Tom Hanks?
Yeah. I had never seen it before. That's great.
What's it streaming on?
It's actually on IMDb TV. Yeah.
Nice.
Which, okay, you watch 4 commercials. Well, look, I was going to pause it and pee 4 times anyway.
Right.
So, yeah, I had never seen it before. Great movie. Ton of fun. Carrie Fisher's in it. Kind of weird to see her playing a housewife, but
yeah, that's true. But Cycly and I love our horror comedies, and that's like maybe one of the OG horror comedy movies.
I need to go back and revisit it. That's a classic. Yeah,
it's a horror comedy that actually like tried to scare you, but wasn't, because the comedy is not derivative of how stupid horror movies are. It's like, no, we want to scare you, and then we also want to make you laugh.
Yeah, it's not being meta. Yeah.
No, not at all. Like they legitimately, they're not making you laugh because you're scared. You're laughing because it's funny.
Yes. Early Tom Hanks too, like probably before Big even, right?
Maybe right around the same time. But yeah, it was very early Tom Hanks. This is back before when he would just take any role instead of only Oscar bait role.
Yeah. The Burbs year after Big. Burbs was 89, Big was 88. So yeah, the beginning of Tom Hanks.
Really the heyday of Hanks.
Sure. The Burbs
We
also,
can say fun Hanks. Let's say that.
Yeah, there
fun
we go.
Hanks.
There we go.
The Burbs, one of the best movie posters of the 80s also. Great movie poster.
Which is the top. That is a tough list to top.
That's got to be a bracket we do someday. Best movie posters.
Oh yeah.
The
Write
Dark
that
Knight,
down.
The Dark Knight one where Ledger is
That's
like drawing.
good. Yes.
Yeah. Fuck, that'd be cool.
Write that down so we don't forget this.
Yeah. We're not going to talk Bachelor?
Oh, I forgot. I was just asking.
I don't have much to say.
I mean, what is there to say? He fucked up.
Bachelor finale, season 25 finale, Matt James. Banner, my quick thoughts, and then anything you want to add. Michelle got done dirty. I think she legitimately is one of, in the past 4 or 5 seasons that I've watched, one of the few candidates that I actually say, I think if you pick this girl, she will legitimately try to make this work with you.
Yep.
So she got done dirty. Also, did Matt's parents get divorced, Brian? Because he hardly ever mentions it.
I don't, I've never seen them together, but I've never heard him say anything.
Like, dude, we get it. Like, I'm sorry that happened, but every other sentence you have to fucking bring it up and use it as an excuse for every issue in your life. I don't know. And then the last thing, obviously, did you watch the after show or whatever?
I fell asleep. It was
too much. It was 3 hours, but I watched it. Basically, all that he ends up saying, spoilers for The Bachelor. Skip ahead 30 seconds. Him and Rachel, who we shouldn't have picked but did, broke up because of the photos that released after the show of her at the antebellum party. So no surprise there, really. Like, yeah, your actions have consequences, and we're basically back where we started with him. So he seems like a good guy, but I think a pretty bad season, all in all, if I had to be honest.
100%, and especially followed. It came after Claire and Tayshia's season. I don't know who we're actually calling this, where you got the best of both worlds. You got the crazy, what the fuck just happened, and the I actually think this might work in Claire, like drastic opposites. So really good season of Bachelorette, and then now you have this that just kind of uneventful.
And they did announce, if you want to know, the next Bachelorette season.
Of course. I mean, I'm going to watch it because Matt Geiger's a sick person and got me addicted to this.
It's funny. Yeah, he doesn't even watch it now. We do, but it's like still his fault. He gave us our first hit, you know?
Yeah.
Michelle is going to be the next Bachelorette. But they're actually doing a twofer where it's a separate season, but after Michelle, Katie, who was actually my favorite person from this season.
I really liked Katie.
Yeah, she's going to be the Bachelorette after her. Separate seasons. Michelle's going to go in the summer because she's a teacher. So she's out of school, and then Katie will go after her. So I think we're getting back-to-back Bachelorette seasons.
Nice.
Yeah.
Not mad about that.
Me either.
And I think both of those are going to be good people. I think Katie especially is going to be a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, I think the good thing about her, I'm not sure Michelle's ability to do this because she's so nice, but Katie will call out all these douchebags for their bullshit.
On everything, at every step of the way.
That's what I need. The Bachelor Bachelorette really just has to be like a glorified
referee,
like Dick Bavetta or Joey Crawford. Like you got to call everything that you see, and then some. What's that? And that noise of a parrot being waterboarded brings us to the third and final part of our show, our Do You Even Lift Bruh segment, which is our question and answer segment, where we ask a question and then we leave you guys with it. And the question today is, a second and incredibly badass trailer dropped this past week for the Disney origin story of Cruella de Vil, titled, of course, Cruella, starring Emma Stone as the titular character, Giggity. The film has instantly jumped to one of my most anticipated movies of the year after this trailer, and it begs the question, guys, if you were buying stock now on what types of the following movies, you'd rather see from Disney going forward, would it be, because we've had this discussion a lot before, A, origin stories or reimagining of established characters in live action, like Cruella, or B, live action remakes of the classics, such as The Little Mermaid coming out this year, and obviously we've had a litany of these from Disney. So, Cycly, we'll go to you first because I know the live action remakes have been hit or miss with you. Have you seen the Cruella trailer or any of them? And does that change your mind about what you'd rather see from Disney going forward with the live action?
Yeah, I have seen the trailer, and I do like it. I'm excited for it. I think I've said the same thing, especially in the world of Disney characters. I like the originality approach. I'm excited for this because it's something we haven't seen. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that I'm not going to watch the live action remakes. I have obviously watched all of them. I have strong opinions about all of them, especially Mulan, which was terrible, in my opinion. I didn't mind Aladdin. I actually enjoyed that one. I enjoyed Beauty and the Beast. But at the end of the day with these movies, I don't know what I'm getting. Like, what am I getting that I didn't already have with the live action remakes? That doesn't mean I'm not going to watch them, but I think that's where I'm struggling with it. Whereas I'm always someone who appreciates originality, even if it's not good. At least they tried. Kind of the Hangover 3 approach. You know what? It wasn't Hangover 1, but I'm glad they did something different. So I'm on the board of expand the universe a little bit, give us characters, give us depth about these characters, give us origin stories. And I think that's where I'm on this list. Not that it's just kind of like, give me something new. And that's what Hollywood's struggling with me, whether it's Disney or just any other production studio. So I'm on that side.
So to that point, let me ask you a question, because the Aladdin sequel live action has been announced. And everyone at first was like, what are you guys going to fucking do? Return of Jafar? Like, nobody wants to see that.
It's like a 20-minute movie.
Right. And Disney actually said, so this is kind of like the middle ground, right? Like the two Venn diagrams intersecting. They said, we're making a sequel to Aladdin, but it's a completely new idea.
Yeah, I'm on board
with that. Is that one for you that scratches this itch? Okay.
I think the thing is, I was, when the original concept of a live action hit us, like 7 years ago, this, like when they were saying they were going to do the big ones, I think we were all super excited. And between Jungle Book and Beauty and the Beast, like the first two, I remember being like, okay, that was fine. But again, what am I getting out of this? So I remember it's like the damned if you do, damned if you're not. If you do it exactly the same, the audience is going to come out and be like, well, that was exactly the same. If you changed it up, then people are like, well, they changed that. They added a song. They did this differently. And people complain. Just go original. And I think you solved that. And so, yeah, I'm excited about Aladdin 2. Again, I could hate it, but at least it's giving me something new to look forward to. Yeah. Mulan just really left a really bad taste in my mouth.
So I never saw Mulan because of your assessment of it after you watched it. And so I'll just briefly say I love both these ideas going forward, but I think if you made me pick, I would say live action remakes with the caveat of take some chances. Like, you can take some liberties with the story, but I need my music. Right? Like Mulan ditched the music to one of the better Disney movie soundtracks.
Well, yeah.
And I need my music. So Little Mermaid I'm pumped for, but give me Under the Sea. Give me Kiss the Girl. Give me Part of That World. Like, all those have to be in there, and then you can have some fun with the story and fuck around. But
and I agree with
that.
The problem with Mulan was they said they were taking out the songs to come in and be a little more serious and realistic. And then when you watch it, they literally just shit on it and added an element of magic. So, like, no, there was no realism that you said you wanted to bring to the story. So it had nothing to do with taking the music out. So it was was even worse on top of that. So it did everything you wouldn't want it to.
All right, Banner, you're the Disney guy on pod. What do you think? Would you prefer live action remakes or some sort of new take on the IPs, reimaginings, origin stories, or maybe some sort of hybrid of the two, like we're getting with the Aladdin sequel?
I think obviously a hybrid would be the best option. That's best of both worlds, right? But personally, I like the origin stories. I like these reimagined ideas, mainly because whether they're good or not, whether they work or not, they're going a little darker. Let's look at Maleficent, right? We got that a little bit darker. Maleficent 2, Cruella. This looks darker. It's getting a PG-13 rating, and not for violence, which
they're letting Emma Stone fuck around with this one. It looks like,
right. So I think they are appealing to our generation, right? Where we grew up on, I mean, obviously 101 Dalmatians was in the 60s, well before us, but that idea that we grew up with these characters and we love them so much, but we aren't kids anymore. We're adults. We want some more substance. We need more than just the music. And kind of the theme today, we're going to pay homage to the originals. We're going to recognize that they're there and that they were a thing, but let's do a good idea in tandem with that.
Very well said. The reason I was originally going to say the live actions, I think it's a great way to introduce these IPs to a younger audience. But I also realized that, like, if you don't, like Psycho was saying, if you don't have anything new to bring to the table, you're really not pleasing anyone. Like, the Lion King movie, I'm going to be a snooty bitch about that. Like, it doesn't do, like, if you're just going to, I know the technology looks great and fucking, you know, the animation style is badass, but to make the same movie in that style, like, if I wanted to see that movie, I'll just watch the better version from the 90s, you know? So meet me somewhere in the middle. All right, any last thoughts before we let the people go for episode 147? Ronnie Cycli.
I think the overall theme of this episode has been, if you're going to do a sequel or a remake, respect the original. That's it. You know, just like, don't come in and shit on it. And whether it's in our March Madness movie of like what the worst movies sequels are, or we're talking about Disney, it's just, I love a good sequel that respects its predecessor.
And just the mere fact that the capital of Thailand is Bangkok is not funny.
No, but Dumb and Dumber 2, though.
I still don't think, I feel like it's going
No,
on my
it's
head.
not.
I don't know.
Okay.
It's not.
We'll get there.
Yeah, let's sidebar after this, okay?
You know, if you get it, tweet at us, explain it.
Please. Let us know. I hope someone's like, actually, I would love that tweet. Banner, last thoughts for episode 147.
Great episode, guys. Don't forget to pull over for emergency vehicles.
Yes, please do. Actually, this week, you know, normally I say I had a run-in, not a run-in, but like I saw a fire truck or cop with its lights on. Nothing of that sort this week, which is good.
That's a good thing.
Yeah. Sadly, it's been a rarity on this show. All right, for our legal counsel, Ronnie Cycli, and the mad scientist, Brian Banner, I'm the mayor, Jeff Hornacek, and we are the Bro Force Squad podcast. Thank you guys so much for checking us out. Follow us on Twitter at Bro Force Squad. Vote on all of the worst movie sequel ever. Movie Madness Tournament. We'll be posting those matchups this week. Find us on Letterboxd, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, and YouTube if you type in Bro Force Squad as 3 separate words. And you can find everything we post, our squad blog, and all the places to find us on our website, broforcesquad.com. Till next time, I'm going to go email Emma Stone again and see if she actually gets back to me this time.
I bet she will.
She's probably just, it's so busy.
When did Jesse Plemons and Kirsten Dunst get married?
Thursday?
Oh, okay.
You weren't invited? This is awesome.
Cyclone had a blast at that wedding, yeah.